Okay, welcome to this video. Now, in our last video, we ended up looking at what sort of keywords are people typing into Google. So we basically found out using the keyword tool how to find out what people are searching for and basically to extract a list of keywords that we believe are relevant to the offer or the campaign that we're looking at running. So these were actually they were the search queries. So if we were to go back to our little anatomy of a search lesson here, what we've done now is we've basically isolated a whole bunch of these search queries that we're interested in buying keywords for. So in this lesson, what we're going to do is we're going to look at how to actually buy the keywords. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to focus on one of the search queries we found and then show you how to actually buy the keywords for it. So let's go ahead and do that. So in actual fact, I just realized I've kind of made a bit of a mistake here. This isn't actually the keywords, but it's more accurately, this is really the search queries. So that's really what we're looking at this list here. And again, this list wasn't complete. It was just a handful that I just handpicked just for the purpose of this example. But there could be hundreds of these sorts of search queries. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to focus on one of them, which will be, let's just focus on the first one to make things simple. So let's just focus on this keyword here, the 5D Mark III. And so what I'm going to do now is going to show you how to buy keywords. Okay, so let's say that we want to buy this keyword. So we're assuming that somebody is typing 5D Mark III into Google. Well, there's actually 4 different ways that we can buy this keyword. So to make things complicated, you need to remember these 4 different ways, or they're actually called 4 different match types. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to write them down, and then we'll walk through them. So the first way that we could buy these keywords is what's called a broad match. So I'm just going to write down exactly the keyword that you would buy in the Google interface. So in this case, I'll buy 5D Mark III, and that's it. So I'm just buying that keyword as it is. So this is called broad match. And case doesn't actually matter, so there could be small d or capital D, that could be a small m or capital M. So case doesn't matter, but spacing matters. And so let's just call it broad match, and let's move on, and you'll see some of the differences as we keep going. So the next way that you could buy this keyword is what's called phrase match. So I'm just going to do phrase match like this with quotation marks on both sides. The next way again is it's what's called exact match. So I'm going to just write it in 5D Mark III exact match. And the last way is what's called a modified broad match, plus 5D plus Mark III. Okay, so right now you're probably wondering, what on earth are these 4 different things and how are they different? So I'm glad you asked. Let's go through those. So the 4 different match types are really Google's way to give you control over exactly the sorts of queries that you're showing your ads against. So remembering here that our whole goal is we want to show, in a best case ideal world scenario, we want to show as close to an ad as the query that's typed in as possible, so that we can have a really nice line of sight. So that's really the ideal goal. So these match types basically sit in the middle to give us complete control over when our ads show and for what particular search queries. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to walk you through a few examples of how and when you might use a different variation of these keywords. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to quickly do a summary here. That this is a broad match. So a broad match has no sort of indicators, no sort of parameters around it. Phrase match has quotation marks or talking marks. Exact match has square brackets, parentheses, and modified broad match has the plus sign. Modified broad match has the plus sign. So let's just go into each of these. And so broad match is probably the easiest no, in fact, why don't we start with exact match? So I'm going to start in the middle. So exact match is probably the easiest to explain because, as the name suggests, what happens when you buy an exact match keyword is that your ad will only show if someone types in exactly what's between the brackets. So in this particular case, in an exact match case, your ad will only show, so let's just do that. In an exact match case, your ad will only show if someone types this into Google. 5D Mark III. That's the only way that an ad will show, which is fantastic if you want that level of control. So if somebody types in 5D Mark II with two I's, your ad won't show. If someone types in 5D Mark III but instead uses the word MARK instead of MK, the abbreviation, then your ad won't show either. So exact match, as the name suggests, will only show your ad if someone types in exactly these two words. Let's move on to phrase. Phrase match. In a phrase match scenario, your ad will only show if someone types in what you've indicated in between the talking marks in the order that you've indicated. But phrase match gives you a little bit more flexibility in that if someone's typed in a word before or after it, your ad can also show. So for example, in phrase match, your ad could show if someone typed into Google Canon 5D Mark III. So here we might have the word Canon appearing in front, but that's okay because as long as the word 5D Mark III also appears in that order in the search query, then our ad will still show. Likewise, if someone typed in 5D Mark III, say, in this case, body, for example, your ad will also show because the word 5D Mark III is still appearing in the user search query in Google when they type it in, but there's an extra word and that's still fine. So that'll match to phrase, but it won't match to exact because there's an extra word, because in both these cases an extra word appears, so it won't match to exact. Let's do broad now. So if we look at a broad match, this is, as the name suggests again, the broadest application. So this will actually work. So Broadmatch gives Google the license, essentially like an open checkbook, basically, to match your keywords to any other keywords Google thinks is related to your query. So in our case, we bought the keywords, 5D Mark III broad in this case, but Google knows the 5D Mark III is a camera. So it might actually match to another Canon camera. It could actually match to a 6D Mark III, or it could match to a, or it could match to a 5D Mark II. And essentially what that means then is that with a broad match, if you allow Google to go and broad match your ad to any sort of related query, it means that, remembering that we're trying to go for a line of sight here, it means it's very possible that your ad might be a complete mismatch for somebody who searched on Google. So I'm not going to go into strategy here, but I would almost highly recommend against using broad for these reasons. You basically lose control of the line of sight. So let's just move to the last example here, which is the modified broad, and the one with the plus sign. And so with a modified broad match, really it's kind of almost an in-between of phrase, and it's almost a mix-up, of broad and phrase and exact, in that you're saying to Google, in this case, a modified broad, we're saying, we're happy to match to any search query as long as the words 5D and Mark III appear, but in any order in the query, or if there's any other words. So modified broad match could match to a query that's like, say for example, Canon. So say someone searches for a Canon 5D, say Mark II or Mark III. So imagine that's exactly what they've typed into Google. Then your ad can match to this because the word 5D and Mark III appears in the query, even though it's out of order. So even though there are other words appearing, your ad can still match and show against it. So I'm not going to go into the different strategies, but all I wanted to do in this video was show you the different match types and how they work. And essentially, this is how to buy keywords.